How is everyone? Hey,
Happy Thursday. How are you, G?
happy Thursday. How are you, Chandra?
I'm tired. I ain't gonna lie. I was gonna say I'm fine. I am fine, but I'm just tired. I think I'm feeling what everybody else is feeling on the first long week after the break. You know,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
dragging a little bit, but I'm good. I'm
And
good.
we had our American Thanksgiving and we ate ourselves probably to nappiness. And now we are ready to do it 1 week later again with you all. We are so happy that you are here. I'm Georgette Green Hodnett.
I'm Chandra Joseph Lissette, and I am so excited about tonight.
Yes, 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 yes. So, those of you who probably have been with us before, you know that we are the host of Real Talk, Real Time with Chandra and Georgette. And we have been doing this series called Reflections from the Heart. And I'm going to have my girl Chandra to introduce our special guest for this evening.
Awesome. So, our special guest this evening is someone dear and near to my heart. It is Otto Johnson, who is a school psychologist in the Framingham Public Schools. Otto has a breadth of experience and has been in education, teaching, and mentoring, and now a school psychologist for 30 years across several states and several schools. So, we're excited to talk to him about his role as a school psychologist and how it's changed given our current situation. So,
So, welcome,
welcome, Otto.
Hi, everybody.
Otto.
It's good to be here.
So glad to have
Yes,
you.
thank you so much for coming this evening. We really, really appreciate it. We're so passionate about talking to educators in all the various roles about, what's going on
Right.
currently, right? And getting the various perspectives across educational roles and informing not only, parents, but other educators. Because, what's really interesting about education is that we tend to see things from our particular perspective and our role. And sometimes it can be a little short sighted. So it's really helpful to have these conversations with folks who are in a variety of roles across education so that we are all informed as we are all working towards the best interests of all of our children. So thank you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
so glad to have you. And we are so regretful that our other guest, Yvette Oaddams, was unable to be with us this evening. And for the very reason, kind of that we're talking about, as a school counselor, she was called back to her school to support her school team in an emergency. And we do hope that all is well there. While we don't have any particulars, we know that this is exactly what we're talking about, the impact on professional school counselors, on school psychologists. It's almost, I hate to say it's fitting, but it goes along with what we're saying tonight. It's not just what they do during the school day, but even often impacting their personal lives and taking their work back to support students and families. So we do thank you again, Yvette, for your willingness, and we just hope that all is well with you and your school. Um, so I want to add to the stream this quote, and we want Otto to kick off the conversation by telling us his response to that. An educator's most important work is to help students develop the intellectual and social strength of character necessary to live well in the world. And that comes from the book Students at the Center. So Otto, what do you what does how does that resonate with you, that quote?
So this speaks to me a lot. First of all, I have to say that I never in a million years would have thought that I would work in a middle school. And this is my 16th year there, and I love it. It's where I'm supposed to be. But I I feel like this is something that I tell the teachers in middle school is like our job. Of course, it's to educate them, but our job is really to get them through middle school, because I know a lot of people, their memories of middle school are not very good. It's that really awkward age. It's where everybody wants to be the same. Nobody wants to stick out. Anything that does stick out, people make fun of and pick on, and all of that stuff. It can be really brutal. but and so by being there and being supportive and helping get through socially and emotionally, that's kind of what our goal is, and what the ultimate goal is. So sometimes teachers don't necessarily, and I have like I said, I have an education background, so sometimes teachers don't like it when I say that, but it's like ultimately in middle school, it's really not about the ancient history that you're studying. It's really about getting through socially and emotionally sound, and because it's tough, it's a tough age.
Yes, I'm from middle school, so I can relate to you entirely.
That's interesting, Otto. I'm wondering if that, because Otto and I actually taught elementary school together, is it vastly different from the elementary school experience when in reference to kind of SEL and, like equipping students with what they need to be citizens in the world? Do you feel like the charge is vastly different?
I think so, because it's different. It's that adolescent age where their brain is developing and they're changing. They're becoming more independent. So whereas a lot of times in elementary school, it's well, the teacher said, the teacher knows everything, adults know everything, and then starting in 6th grade and more so by 8th grade, kids are like, well, wait a second, they're adults, but they don't know everything. And then, of course, you all remember it goes the flip side where they know everything and we don't know anything. And we can't relate. We don't understand. We've never been through that because they just don't believe that we used to be that age. And we actually did go through all of that before. But so I think it's different as they're learning to become adults, and they think they're more adult than they are. And so it's definitely that transition between childhood and adulthood where it's hard, and they're they deal with some really heavy stuff sometimes. And if you can remember being that age, it's like everything is a big deal. Everything is on both good and negative sides. Like you love someone after a week, you've never been so in love. Then when you break up, and even though you didn't know the person's last name, your heart is crushed, it's broken, you grieve so huge, and it's just everything is very big. But so just like where teenagers have a hard time controlling like their emotions and regulating their emotions and dealing with outbursts and things like that, they're also incredibly loyal friends. They and that's one thing that they really have going for them, and so it's just but it is tough though. It's harder for them because a lot of times it's like I think a lot of times kids are torn between that area where as a kid I need to talk to an adult, something's wrong and I need to talk to an adult, and then feeling like I want to be independent and I don't want to rely on adults. And so it's getting them to realize that's what we're there for, and that's actually a good coping mechanism, and something that you need to develop as an adult is when to go and seek help from other people.
That's really valid. And I can imagine you said 16 years of experience. I bet you've seen a lot of transitions over that time. So while we've been reflecting on this particular school year, because it's definitely like one we've never had before, how do you see things being different in your role?
Sure. So one thing that's important and to point out is, and whoever's here, I'm sure we could take a poll and find out how school psychologists are different in every building at different districts.
Sure.
I'm lucky. I'm school-based, so I'm at my middle school. I'm able to, I work with kids who are in special ed. I work with kids who aren't in special ed. Chandra knows me. I'm all about relationships. I love being with kids. And so I get to know as many kids as I possibly can. And I feel like that's important for kids to feel seen and feel like people actually know them. In my 30 years, I was telling Chandra and Gorgette this earlier. It's like every year, teachers always are like, "Oh my God, this class is the worst that we've ever had before. They're the worst. They're the worst. They're the worst." It's like, no, it's not. It's like they're kids, and this is what happens. And but I will be the first to say that this year is different. It's absolutely different. So in my role as a school psychologist, I'm trained in 3 areas. One is to do assessments. So like if somebody's referred for special ed, or if they're already in special ed and they need a 3-year reevaluation, I do the testing on, cognition and memory and social emotional and stuff like that. But I'm also trained to do consultation with teachers. They're having a hard time with somebody, to come in, do classroom observations, help them problem solve, to figure out. And then I'm also trained to counsel kids. So I do individual counseling, I do group counseling, I do lunch groups and things like that. So I'm trained in all of those different areas, as are the school psychologists at any of your buildings. That being said, sometimes in some districts, like, the psychologists are assigned to 3 different schools. And unfortunately, there's that legal requirement of the testing, of the timelines and all that stuff. So if that takes up all your time, that's just kind of is what's going to happen. But for me, I'm lucky that I get to, I'm at my school, and I still have a big caseload, but I get to do the other parts of my job too that I really enjoy. And I feel like I really noticed this. I even want to say by the end of September, like, the kids were just different, like, in terms of behaviors and stuff like that. It felt more like spring. Like, how everybody's just, it's finally getting warm again, and the end of the school year is coming, and we're getting ready to go. And we didn't have that honeymoon that we normally get. It just was not there. We just saw a lot of behaviors that we're not used to seeing. We've had this year at my school, I would say, 6 fights since the beginning of the year. In the previous 15 years, I don't think we had 6 fights total. So
Wow.
it's really bizarre. And I'm trying, and so this is what I was really thinking about. I was like, well, what is it? What's so different? First of all, I really think that probably the biggest thing is some kids have not been in school for a year and a half. So, like, our 8th graders right now, some of them were there for half of 6th grade, then not there at all, and now they're back in. And I remember on the first day of school, a kid that I knew, he was like, oh, where is this? I'm like, oh, it's down in the 8th grade hall. He's like, I don't know where that is. I'm like, oh, you haven't been here. So I think, when you think about it, my school is almost 800 kids, so around 1,000 people ish that are in one building, and it's a weird place to be every day for 7 hours a day. Like, that's not normal for all of these people to go to one place and just to constantly be together. That I think we kind of just took for granted how kids knew how to behave in that setting. Like, I really think kids just forgot, and kids for a lot of reasons, just, kind of being on their own more for a year and a half in terms of social interactions and stuff like that, and kind of just doing things on their own. I also think masks make a big difference, because I don't know who kids are. It's hard to, it's just like, I'm surprised they haven't figured this out sooner. Or that it doesn't happen even more. But, like, when they're walking down the hallway from lunch, you can scream because nobody knows who it is. They don't know. So
They
it's
do
like,
that at my school too.
A, I don't know your name, and B, even if I did, I couldn't be for sure that it was you. They swear at teachers. They push past teachers. It's like, it's just this different. They do not feel as connected to the school as they typically would, because that's what I really like about Walshers. We have a tight family. It really feels like a family. I love it there, and it's just it feels different. I think we're getting there, just gradually. And so, just like they don't feel necessarily as apart, I don't know the kids as well as I would either. So, like, you always have that group of kids who are particularly, for lack of a better word, obnoxious, or just, whatever, just, free spirits or whatever. And those are actually the kids who are the most fun to work with. I don't have to teach them. So I get that. And I will tell a teacher that, like, I know. And I tell the kids that too. It's like, oh, you're great. I said, well, yeah, but I'm not trying to teach you. Like, of course, I'm trying to teach you how to, deal with your emotions and stuff, but I'm not trying to teach you math. So I get to talk to you. I get to play Uno with you. So it's different. Like, my role is different. But so even these kids that I don't know, like, you have like 2 tables of kids who, get into trouble more often or whatever. Like, I would know their names usually by then, and they would know us, and they would know that, yeah, we're going to call you out if you do something you're not supposed to do. But it's not because we're evil people who hate children. It's just because, come on, like, and knowing names, that's huge. Like knowing somebody's name, to be able to be like, Chandra, are you sure you want to do that right now? Like, just calm down. Let's go talk. As opposed to, hey, you, what's your name? And then you get why. It's like, just tell me your name. I want to talk to you about your name. So
Well,
it's,
Chandra,
it is
think?
is
You would
different.
think Otto has been in our conversations because we talked about the things that he just mentioned about the students just getting back, not having had the experience of lockers or knowing where rooms are on certain hallways, and the
Yeah.
whole idea of I've experienced where the kids are yelling in the hall and you don't know who it is because everyone's faces are covered with a mask.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about relationships with families, right? I mean, when I'm thinking about the sixth graders that you were talking about, right? They were there for half a year, then they were gone. Like normally, if they were there, there's probably a core group of kids that would be on your caseload and you would have whole types of different
Mhm.
interactions with them and with their families. And
Right.
so, how has that relationship with families even changed, for you in this time?
I think it's exactly like you said. It's just like we don't know each other because I don't know their kids as well yet. So it's not the same because so largely the lunch groups, for example, that I do aren't because it's on somebody's IEP. It's just I find a group of kids that are like, oh, you know what, from my past experience, we're going to get to know each other. So let's get to know each other in a fun way. And so, let me give you a space to have some time and have some fun and get to know an adult, so that you can have that person to go to. But so then, yeah, it's with their families too, then, because we don't know each other as well. And then kind of one thing that's been happening, I think we're finally kind of getting done with this, but we had several initial evaluation requests, but based on virtual. So it's like, well, so your child, I get it. Yeah, I understand that you're concerned your child wasn't doing work, they weren't turning in their assignments and stuff like that. That doesn't mean special ed, and that was, that let's wait and see what happens um,
Yes.
when they get back here. So there's that piece too, where the parents are seeing, well, wait a second, like they are really disorganized. They're not doing what they need to be doing and things like that. But on the other hand, there were some kids who loved virtual. Like
Yes.
those school phobic kids. Like I had one kid in particular. He thought it was great. Like, this is
Yes.
awesome. I don't have to go. This is wonderful. So and there are other kids. And I had one kid who, a sixth grader, actually, he came in for an evaluation that he was referred when he was in fifth grade, and he came in and he said that he has attention issues, and he said he liked the home better because there aren't as many distractions. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
oh, I thought that was so, like, he's 11. I'm like, oh, so you mean like when you're at school, you're always hearing, hey, Otto, stop, Otto, pay attention, Otto, turn around, Otto, put that away, Otto. And he's like, yeah. And I don't have as many distractions at home. So
Yes.
it
You know what
wasn't
I'm
all
curious
for everybody.
about? Are teachers coming to you more than they had before for their
Mm.
own support?
Um, I think so. Yeah. The way that at my school, we actually have two psychologists. We have two social workers, two psychologists, three school counselors. So,
Wow.
well, the second, so it's kind of convoluted what all happened. But anyway, so fortunately, the other psychologist that we have was my intern last year, and she's trilingual in Portuguese, Spanish, and English, which has been a lifesaving because we've been getting a ton of non-English speakers, basically, that have come in this year. We have three middle schools. One of the middle schools is completely full. The other middle school, the eighth grade, is full. So we get all of the eighth graders in Framingham, regardless of language or anything. So we get all the eighth graders. So it's good to have her because that really helps. Because but so I think that the teachers are feeling that, in particular the eighth grade teachers, because they feel like, and with the model, with the immersion model, it's like you just teach in English, and just that's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to learn it, and they've all been SEL certified and all that stuff. So that's good. But they're feeling really frustrated with that, and I feel like, yeah, they do reach out more, but I also feel like in a way that's not that different because it's always been that way with our school. Like, they know that we're there for them, and a lot of times people can be frustrated and not know what to do, and sometimes it's almost the way, like, we want you to fix them, but it doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, I'll do what I can to support you, and I'll help them, but I'm probably not going to be able to just make this problem go away. But they've always been really appreciative of any support that we can give, and they're always willing to try whatever, that we offer and stuff like that. So in a way, I feel like I feel like it's more so, but I think they're also kind of relying on each other as teaching teams and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to something you said a little bit. The sixth grader who found that being online and being home was far less distracting.
Yep.
Because G and I are always having this conversation about we thought, right? We had this 16-month window where we could reform and change education, right? We could move forward and do some things really, really differently. And so I'm wondering, from a school psychologist point of view, what you think about the fact that we haven't, and what are some things that you think maybe we could do? We can't take that huge leap to say, okay, we're going to definitely have, in-person version and, kind of online. What are some things we might be able to do, for instance, for this particular kid with the technology, inside the school? Is your school or your district doing anything that's slightly different to really try and accommodate some of these kids who really did benefit from being online, whether it's the distractions, whether it's, quite frankly, some of the kids who are getting bullied, right? Or some of the kids who are just middle school, or sometimes school in general. High school is really hard to navigate. I know, like for my own kid, for instance, she loved it merely because she didn't have to be at school at 7 o'clock in the morning,
right,
and just body clock, right? When she's a high schooler, right. We all know the data around that, but yet they go to school at 7. She was able to go to school much later, and her classes weren't back to back to back. She actually had some breaks. They had done some things differently. So I'm just curious about like what you're thinking about all of that, and if something is happening in your district or your school, what's going on? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no, those are really good points. I'm not sure what answers I have for you, but yeah, I feel like it's hard. So we had, have you heard of Summit before? So like I think it was by Facebook or something. It was a learning platform that people loved or they hated. So it's kind of like with the same thing. So some people did really well with the virtual, and other kids just did not do well at all. Like even around, I feel like honestly, if we could get the technology piece figured out, that would be huge for one thing. I feel like we did pretty well in Framingham. Everybody got Chromebooks. We had the remote hubs, or I can't. Yes, thank you. We had those for where they needed, but even that only worked so well. So, so I feel like there was that piece, because even to support, if a school has to shut down for a week, like, well, what can you do? I feel like I've seen some teachers who do a really good job and use it to be able to differentiate even more, because they have everything online, because we still use Canvas. So there's a big computer component. Where they're able to differentiate and allow kids to choose different things. I think that's great, giving more choice in how you do something. There's actually one team of our teachers who they're not using the Chromebooks at all for now, because they did so much in the past year and a half that they figured we need a break from that and what we're doing in the classroom. And that's the thing. That's always what frustrates me so much too, like with education. And even the reason I became a school psychologist was I just remember the school psychologist that I had when I was teaching in Milwaukee. I just wasn't very impressed with. Very nice person, but just, it was like, somebody would get referred and they would be in the gray area. And this was back then. This was when it was the whole discrepancy model. So, if somebody's not doing well in school and they don't score well on the IQ test, well, that's what you expect. So no problem. And so that was always frustrating, because it was like, well, if a teacher refers a kid for an evaluation, they already know that there's a problem. It might not be special ed, but something's wrong. Like, and they know that. And so that's what I thought, is like, oh, I'm going to go learn to be a school psychologist. I learned to do these tests. There's these 13 disabilities. If a kid has a learning disability, this is what you do. And then everything's going to be great. And of course it's not like that. And that's what's so frustrating, is like, and when you look back at the history of education, it's like they've been having the same conversations like forever about homework and retention. Like, this isn't a new thing. This has been going on forever. And it's like, you would think like we would just have it figured out. Like, this is what you do. This is the best thing to do. And even like with reading, like, they've done so much research and how kids learn how to read best and what needs to be done and what needs to be put in place. And there's still disagreement about that and pushback about that. And, and it's really also never always totally clear cut either. It's like, it's just, that's what's so hard, is because people are so unique and so individual. And it's just, I don't know. I wish you would think we would have it figured out by now. My God, like it's not. It's like, and being able to work with Chandra, who is an amazing teacher, and I don't think people realize. Oh, it blew me out of the water by far. I was good with relationship stuff, but like, to be a good teacher is so hard. Like, people really don't get how taxing it is. Just being in the school, like all of the decisions you constantly are making, but then to prepare for it and to have, to have good lessons and to differentiate and do all that stuff. It's a hard job. And then this didn't help things at all.
Yes. And so even Otto, to acknowledge that while teachers have a hard job, counselors do too. Last week we talked about administrators and just, some of the challenges and the things that they kind of were dealing with and facing, but the same is true for counselors. Yeah. So I appreciate that you're saying that, like, teaching is hard, but also what you do is hard as a psychologist.
Hard, different. Yes.
Well, all different. It's still hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other obstacles do you, because I feel like that's kind of the road you're on. What other obstacles do you see you're facing in your role?
Now that they're back, I feel like it's a lot better. But when we just shut down, that was hard because, what do I do? I couldn't meet with kids to test them. Mm-hmm. I tried setting up individual meetings with kids. I did a couple of lunch groups on Zoom. Mm-hmm. It's not the same though. It's like when it's just not. Like, I need to be face to face and in the room with somebody, and that's how relationships build, like sincere relationships. Of course, there are great things about being able to do things online and telehealth and all of that stuff, but just I feel like working at a middle school and working in school, it's like those relationships, like, you need to be together. Just along that and the logistics of being able to give an assessment, like, how do you do that? Like, and some places were and then anytime that I would go to like a training about this is what you need to do, it always involved like all of this technology and training and like just like you need to get a document camera to the kid and you need to train their parents on what to do and all this stuff. Now there are places who did it online, but I don't know how they did it remotely, to be honest with you. So I waited until we were able to. So I've been back. I was back all of last year. So we had that extended PD time at the beginning of the year, but I was back in the middle of September. And then kids were able to come back right away to start testing. We just had to go through the protocol. And so they're there in person and we had the plexiglass in front of us and the face masks and stuff like that. And so even that, just the face mask is tough because it's unreal how much A, B, C, and D can sound the same when it's just muffled that little bit. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like, what did you say? What? Right. And then some kids are quiet anyway, and then it's like it muffles it just enough to not be able to understand. And I was so hopeful we weren't going to have to wear masks this year, but here we are. But that being said, I also think it's interesting, like all these people who are raising such a hullabaloo about us having to wear masks in the building. It's like, your children are fine. They don't really care. Like nobody in a school cares as much as all the people outside of the schools, which happens a lot, I feel like, in education, doesn't it? It's interesting. People have nothing to do with education. They don't know really what they're talking about. Raise the biggest stink. But it's like, it's whatever. We wear masks. It's fine. It's real. Your kids are fine. They're fine.
It's great because, that's perfect because that's exactly why we started Real Talk, Real Time, because everybody and they mama had something to say about teachers during the pandemic. And I'm like, what would be great? if teachers actually talk to teachers
Yeah.
about what we're
Right.
experiencing, you know, people.
And remember at the beginning, all the praise that teachers
yes.
were getting. Oh my
Yes,
God, how do you do it? We
yes.
should we should pay you twice as much as we pay you.
Yeah.
All this
You
stuff. And
get a
then all of a
car.
sudden,
You
like,
get a car.
right. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, like teachers are preventing kids from going
Right?
back and like it just switched. Like
On a dime,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
and here we are yet again. It's just,
Yep.
it's incredible. It's incredible.
because and you know, everybody's been in school, so everybody knows what it's like to be a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's easy.
Yeah,
They have no idea.
They have no idea. And I tell people all the time, listen, you want to have an idea, take a mini classroom,
Yeah.
go visit. And, you know, I'm going to give you something real. Do read aloud. Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Just do that. Whole different perspective, I guarantee you. Or, you know, shadow a teacher for a day, half a day.
Yeah, and on another side of that, I think what's interesting is a lot of times because we work very closely with our administration as well, which is great. We have a great team. I can't say it enough how much I love being where I am, and a lot of times I think, you know, you hear the term enabling and like people love to throw that word out like they know really what it means, but it's like, you know, nothing gets done. You know, the same kid keeps doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, you know, if suspending somebody worked, we would do it. It just doesn't work. If retention, if that was supported by any research, we would do it. Right. Not saying don't do anything, but it's like we need to figure out what to do differently. And a lot of times, just like, you know, the 8th graders who are all mad because, you know, we're not doing something to support their friend, although they have really no idea what is actually being done. It's the same way with the adults, with teachers sometimes, that, you know, they think nothing's being done when it's like, no, actually a lot's being done. And so we've had several staff members going through like the principal residency thing or whatever program it is. And so they end up shadowing and, you know, being there for like the year. It's a very eye-opening experience for them, both in terms of administration and also guidance, because obviously, you know, and it was eye-opening for me when I started. It's like I knew a lot of stuff about kids, you know, like home lives and things like that, but you really don't realize how much you don't know. That there's so much baggage and so much stuff that kids have going on for them, that it's, you know, oftentimes it's a wonder that they make it to school, and it says something that when they do come.
That's right.
And so this goes back to that very first quote that you were showing. It's like, you know, so we're doing something for them. They're coming. And even the kid who is the most disruptive and is swearing and causing all these problems, they're there.
That's right.
We're doing something. Like, it's frustrating. I get frustrated. I assure you, I get frustrated too. But it's like, you know, it's thinking about what kids need. And actually, you know, I'm just thinking about in the past, you know, kids who are, you know, kind of tough and they just exude this like confidence and like they're very social and they're like, you know, very powerful. I have a lot of friends. Then I give them, you know, a questionnaire to fill out about social emotional stuff, and everything's elevated, like anxiety, depression, self-esteem. And a lot of times they're low. They're academically low, and I always tell parents and I tell kids, this isn't, you know, I'm not finding out what's wrong with you. That's not how it works. It's just to see what your strengths are, things you're still working on, so we know how to teach you best. Just because you don't do well in an area of this testing doesn't mean you'll never be able to do it or limit your potential. It's just right now, this is something that's hard for you. But so, you know, when you think about a middle schooler who comes to school and is struggling with everything, and that, like, you wonder, well, of course they're going to act up. It's like, I mean, you go here and you feel dumb all the time. Like, you just feel like every time.
I don't have a follow-up question related to the parents and families. What things do you think they are bringing to the table differently than in the past, whether it be their needs, their observations, or their contributions in supporting their students?
Well, I mean, I feel like this kind of goes back to what we were saying before. Like, at first it was like everybody was so, you know, thankful. We get, like, it's so hard, like, we understand, and, you know, what can we do to it kind of like almost not being their problem. I mean, I don't think that's most of the parents at our school. It's a very strong community, but but you get a parent who is like, the school keeps calling me to talk to me about behavior. It's like, why do you keep doing that? It's like, well, because it's a problem, so we need to do that. But even with parents, though, I feel like I feel like, in terms of them reaching out because of stuff that they saw during at home when it was all virtual, but not understanding that it was such a unique situation, and because that was happening at home doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to continue a problem, or that it rises to the level of special education. But I've also found that parents, too, are like, what can we do to help? What just tell us what we can do. They're looking for help too. It's a tough age, and they're, nobody, everybody always has problems with it from time to time, and they're appreciative when we're able to help them with stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's been, other than the referrals that we've gotten, where, like I said, there was a little bit of a spike. I don't feel like that's all that different. I feel like parents reach out to us. We do a lot of like we did a Thanksgiving food drive. Well, we didn't do the food drive, but we had 30 turkeys and gift cards donated to the school. So we give those to families. We collect money, and we're giving Target gift cards to families that are in need and stuff like that. So we do a lot of community building around our families and stuff like that. So I feel like that's a pretty good thing for them to feel supported and know that they can come and talk to us. So, and actually, the kids I have to, now that I think about it, because there have been so many more discipline issues this year than we've ever had before. And so a lot of parents have been having to come in and have conversations. The parents have been really great and really supportive of the administration, like understanding, like, yeah, we agree. Like, we're not sure what to do either, and let's work together to see if we can figure it out. So that's definitely an improvement, I would say.
I wanted the teachers to hear that, again, the counselors are dealing with some of the same challenges. When you mentioned what the parents saying, why are you calling me?
Yeah.
The teachers are experiencing that too. And so, it feels better when you know that you're not in the struggle alone.
Right.
And I think that helps.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, Otto, a shift or a change in the reasons that students are coming to you, or you are seeing students now, like heightened anxiety, depression, or, I know, G, you had talked about issues of poverty. I was just thinking about when you
bullying,
were active in the community.
LGBTQ. I mean, are there things that, like Chandra said, that are more prevalent now in what they're seeking support in, not so much that they didn't exist before?
I think the biggest thing is the social piece, the interaction piece, where like the fighting, like, she called me a name, so I'm gonna go and pull her hair. And then everybody whips out their phones, which of course we're not supposed to have, but they all have them. So then they take them out, and this is going down, and just not just forgetting that everything isn't a big deal, that isn't this big thing, and it ends up being stuff like, and so maybe this is just from being online even more so than they have been, but like, well, she told him this, and then he told her, and then I heard about it, and it's just like, what are you talking about? Or like, and rumors that get spread. And there was this one time, this kid was in the cafeteria, was getting up and was like all heated and like going after this other table of these kids who were like totally confused as to what they were mad at. And it was because someone told him that someone at that table was laughing at their friend. And that's what got this whole thing going. So it's like, so I don't know if it's just, it's hard. Just, I don't know. It's everything just seems so reactionary, so much more so than it used to be. like and big reaction.
Yeah.
Boom reaction. It's like 2 days we all had to go down to the 8th grade hall because one day they were all mad at the teachers because there was an incident that was happening. They of course all wanted to be with their friend. It's like, well, no, you can't. So then they're all mad at the adults. You don't care. And then the next day they were all mad at students. So it's just like, you never know. But but I would say that that emotional regulation is tough. I personally haven't seen a lot more anxiety or depression per se. Really, because you always have some of that. I don't feel like I've seen more though.
Right.
Interesting.
Unless of course, like that could also be why kids are acting out the way they are. So, like that could be part of why. Because like I said, when in the past when I've done evaluations of a kid where they seem so tough and strong and confident, and then you look at how they actually feel about themselves and see that that's not true, and then is that really kind of what's guiding their behavior?
When do students self-regulate? Like I was thinking about what you said about when do you realize it's not that big a deal? You know what I mean? Is there a window of time? And I ask that because sometimes I feel like I remember being a teacher and having to remind myself that's not a big deal. Like I even as the adult had to say, okay, it's not a big deal. And for each teacher and for each classroom and for each office, that's going to mean something different. But I was sitting here thinking, when do you, acquire that skill?
Well, so back when Chandra and I taught 2nd grade together, it's like, you just remember like being first in line is a big deal. And if somebody cuts in front of you, oh no. And like, that's like legit. Like I'm mad. And that's one thing when people are always like, oh, I wish I was a kid again. I'm like, I don't wish I was a kid again, because that was like, you are legitimately upset about that. I also actually do group counseling at a place in Newton called the Academy Metro West. Oh no, that's actually not. That's the spinoff. I work at the Academy of Physical and Social Development and I do group counseling with them, and it's in play therapy. And that's kind of where it comes up too. Is like, we're playing a game, and and somebody loses, and then they go crazy. They're all upset, and I'm like, and I always stop, and I'm like, okay, so hold on a second. Like, do you have the right to feel angry right now? Yes, because you have the right to have every emotion that you experience: happiness, sadness, anger, anxiety, depression. Like, those are yours. My thing to push you to think about is that really that big of a deal? Is it worth getting that worked up and that upset about? Because you don't like how you feel right now. You don't like how that feels. So that's kind of what the thing is to just start thinking about it. I don't know of the age when it happens, but I know that and I think for some people it never happens, because we've all been adults, who are just like, really, like look at, and now on social media, look at all these videos that you see of people like, you're losing your mind over that. It's like, that's not okay. But I have a little bit of a nice story to say, that I reconnected recently with a student that I worked with when he was in 6th and 7th grade. And he was there his 6th grade year was my 2nd year there. And we recently reconnected. He's now 25, and he had a lot of anger issues, and and we got to know each other well, and we'd have lunch sometimes, and I'd take him on walks when he was upset, and we actually assembled some of the fitness center equipment and stuff like that. And then I read about him in the paper about how he had some, he had a really rough patch, and actually ended up going to prison and all this stuff, but he's doing great now, has really turned his life around, and and we were connecting and talking, and he was like, do you ever like feel like giving up on what you do? And I said, well, no, but sometimes it can be discouraging, because it's like I spend all this time, and I'm worried. It's like I worry about you have so many things going against you to have you go down this wrong path, and then when I see that some things have actually happened, I wouldn't, I'm like, it's never disappointment. It's I'm sad because I'm not disappointed in you. I'm sad that that's what happened. And so, it's nice. So then you kind of wonder, does it make a difference? And he was like, and I was like, do you remember when we, put together the treadmills in the fitness center? And he's like, I remember everything. I was like, oh, and he's like, and he said, no, it was helpful. He said today, even to this day, like that first of all, I didn't realize just how horrible the home situation was. So this is even a case where in my role, I know more than typically I would, but like he filled me in on like just how bad it was. And I had no idea.
Right.
And so he was like, when you would get me lunch, then, I had food. I didn't have to worry about food that day. So, I was fed, and that, that he knew that I cared about him, and taking him out for walks when he just needed to calm down and breathe. And he said to this day, he still does that. If he gets upset about something, he's like, well, you know what? I just need some space. I'm just going to go for a little drive, calm down, and then I'll come back and we can pick up from where we go. So that was like a real affirmation of like, okay, so it does work. So even though sometimes you feel like, because they're stubborn, middle schoolers, and but you just have to keep at it and keep saying what you know is right, and hope that something will eventually stick. And it's just particularly tough now. I feel like it's getting better though, because I am starting to get to know more of the kids, and not just me. I'm not saying that I'm like the savior of the school, but it's like all of us in our department are starting to get to know the kids. They're getting to know that we're there. Now it's almost to the point of having to, because like I never want to turn somebody away from guidance when they're like coming there to when something's up. That being said, it also isn't a place to come because you don't want to be in this class and you want to come here with your friends and swear, talk about other people. Like that's not that either. No. So it's finding, it's figuring out that it's figuring out that balance. But again, though, like they would have learned kind of that in 6th grade. And all of a sudden they're like these 8th graders who are like, oh, this place is here, and you'll listen to me. It's like that's very powerful. But so we're getting there. We're learning more names, and it's just like, because honestly, I can't stress enough. Knowing names is such a huge thing. Like it just changes things. It can diffuse a situation so fast that it's a powerful tool, and that's why I like to get to know as many kids as I can.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is perfect because right now I'm thinking, I'm hearing you say like, don't give up, right? Build relationships, and so here we are. And I'm thinking, if you had to give a few words of advice, right, to teachers who are seeing and experiencing the fights, the anxiety, the trauma, all that in the classroom, what would you tell them? Like, what would you tell them right now about what they can do, what they should do, what would you maybe remind them of, right? Because we're constantly reminding people we're in the middle of a pandemic. And Gorgette says this all the time, and it is so true. I don't know about all the rest of you, but this is my first pandemic.
I mean, I think first of all, that you're not crazy. You may feel crazy, but you're not crazy. Things actually are different this year. So that's not anybody's imagination. Again, my opinion, but I'm telling you, it's different. It is different this year. So you're not exaggerating. You're not, like I said, you're not crazy. It's hard. It's hard. And I just feel like I have been noticing, like I said, little bits and pieces of change. And so I'm optimistic that, it may not be this year. I think next year is probably also going to be rough, but better. And I think, we're getting there. And it's about relationship building. I mean, that's the hugest thing. And that's one thing that I really wish, looking back on my teaching, I had fun working with kids. They're funny. It's like, and YA, Young Achievers, where Chandra and I worked together, was a very special place, hard place to work, but special and a lot of really great people and a lot of great relationships. But, I'm thinking back, my early years of teaching in Milwaukee, and, the kids that I would get frustrated with, and like, oh, you have to stay in for recess or whatever. Okay, fine. But I'm like, I wish I could go back and think, okay, so let's say that this kid is really driving me crazy. All right, I'm going to have you stay and have lunch with me, and we're going to play Uno. And I'm going to say, I'm really frustrated by, whatever you do, and just try to just have a talk about it. I wish I could go back and do that. Just because I feel relationships make such a huge difference. And I know, and I don't think that I'm, sugarcoating things and being like, oh, all peace, love, and hippie beads. And like, I get it. Like, it's not that way for everybody. And you're going to have some kids who no matter how hard you try are going to push back and not want that. But don't give up because you don't know. Like I said, I had another guy who's now in his 20s who I knew his name at school, but I didn't he wasn't somebody that I met with regularly or had lunch with or anything like that. But I knew him. His thing with me though was that he thought I could teleport because the way that our school is set up, like he would see me in one spot and then he'd be walking down the hall or whatever and I'd be somewhere else. And he's like, how did you get here? So that was like our joke.
That's great.
But he said, like he said, oh, you were so great for, I'm so glad that I got to know you in middle school. And I'm like, okay, like, I just thank you. But what is it that I did for you? Like, what did you? And he said, well, just the fact that you talked to me and got to know me, even in the way that I did, was like, I knew that somebody cared about me and that, that I wasn't, just another kid. And so you don't know the impacts that you're making. Like, just try, like it can be hard. I mean, and Chandra I won't name names, but there were a couple of kids that we had that go through that made it really, really hard. But even because remember when we would do home visits? So for conferences. And so I remember for this one kid in particular, he was tough, like just like really, 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 really tough. But even like going to his house, like he thought that was the coolest thing. And so that didn't make him behave much better for the rest of the year. But, we had those moments. So it's just, I mean, I can't stress that enough about just trying to, don't beat yourself up. It's hard. It's a tiring job on the best of years. It's exhausting. People have no clue how exhausting it is. They really don't. They think it's an easy gig. But just, hang in there and and think of those rewarding times and they'll be back. It's like it's going to get back to, I am confident that it's going to get back to normal. It's not going to stay crazy like this forever.
I added this because, Chandra always says, find your tribe. And you basically said that. And you said many, 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 many times about building relationships. Yep. And I think that is my takeaway from this evening, that we must remember to do that, not just with our colleagues, but with the children, with the families, building relationships. And so finding your tribe is, something that we talk about all the time. And I appreciate that you brought that up to remind us that goes across the board, not, just colleague to colleague.
Yep. Yeah. And when you have a kid open up and, and like trust you and open up and share themselves with you, it's nothing. There's not a better compliment in the world. It's just, it's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to remind
you can't be phony. You can't be phony.
No, you have to they can smell that.
What?
Yep.
They can smell that.
A mile away. No, close up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Close up.
Yes, absolutely.
And the other thing that I would add for all educators to remember is to show yourself some grace, right? Like when I say we're literally all just trying to figure this out, we really are, like day by day, just trying to figure it out together. So as you're finding your tribe and you're leaning on one another, like don't be so hard on yourself or on your colleagues, right? Like your colleagues are going through stuff too, much like our students are. Again, this is our first pandemic, and one of our Facebook folks just put out, and it's true, like we're also in the middle, we got a racial pandemic going on, right? We clearly have COVID going on. There's poverty, like there are layers upon layers upon layers in this pandemic, right? And so we all have to like give ourselves a little bit of grace, do a whole lot of breathing. No, we're doing our best. We're going to make some mistakes. And like that's part of the process. And it's also okay, right? So give your colleagues some grace when, they're stumbling, they're falling, they're trying to figure some stuff out. Lend a hand. Lend a hand. Don't be so, so quick to just like jump on them or assume or whatever is going on. Because we're all trying to figure this out under the hardest situation. And as you said, Otto, this year is different. It is different across the board. No question about it. No question about it. So show yourself and your colleagues some grace, please.
Otto, if people want to get in touch with you, do you phone number, email, what's your preference?
Sure. I can give my email at my work. So it's ojohnson at framingham.k12.ma.us. Yes, the old school emails. They haven't changed that for us. So the kids don't have those, though. They have like FPS edu or something like that. But feel free if you have any questions or whatever. If anything I can do. And I just want to echo what Chandra said is like, I mean, you're going to make mistakes. Like and whenever I'm working with kids and talking to them when they're all upset about something, it's like, well, everybody makes mistakes. The thing is, if you learn from it, it's like that's the point. Like even and I can talk the talk, but I also like I'm in the front doors every morning with another person and greeting the kids as they come in, and it was cold and a student with their mask on, so it may not have even been the person, but I'm pretty sure it was, but made some smart ass comment like and was being rude to the other teacher and I, but I made it into a much bigger deal than it needed to be. And then they come into the lobby and then they have their phone out and they're not supposed to have their phone. So I'm like, give me your phone. No, give me your phone. I didn't do anything. Give me your phone. It became this whole stupid thing. So finally, I finally just had her go sit somewhere. I'm like, I'll be right back. So then I came back and I said, okay, technically you shouldn't have your phone out in school, but I should have just told you to put it away. That's how it goes. In the future, and then this is when I said, "What's your name? Why?" I said, please just tell me your name." Of course. So I feel like we ended up in a better place, but like I lost it, and it's like it's hard because it's a stressful situation that we're in, and then it's like,
example because we all lost it, but I can't say a lot of us have come back to that kid and tried to reconcile. Try to model. So thank you for that. Because a lot of times people would leave this and think, oh yeah, I would have told him off too. But really, we need to model the idea of reconciliation.
Because I told them, I was like, because that whole thing over the phone should not have happened. It's like, I don't want to hear rude comments from you when you're coming in, and you don't come here for me to bark at you first thing in the morning.
That's right.
So let's move on. This is over and done with. Let's move on.
And the kids would say, he keeps it real, or whatever they see you, that is how they would remember it instead of the dude who was trying to take my phone,
Right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. And that's the modeling, the mentoring, right? Because the kids are watching.
Yes. The children are watching.
They are watching, right? And they're paying attention. And we got to walk the walk. There's no question about that. Like I'm a firm believer in that sort of thing. And sometimes as educators, we need to put ourselves in timeout. So that's what it made me think when you said you walked away. I'm like,
totally.
Timeout.
Yes.
Really, I am over the top. This is my stuff, not their stuff.
Yeah.
Let me just back up, breathe, and come at it a different way.
It's Monday morning. Let's just relax.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We're all on edge.
Yeah.
Our first pandemic, all of that stuff, right?
We're going to bring it on down.
We're going to bring it on down.
So we are just so grateful that you were here to join us this evening. We love to have these vibrant and rich conversations. And so that's why we've been doing our lives. We'll be trying to do 2 a month. And we keep the conversation flowing on our Facebook group, Real Talk Real Time Educators Forum. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was a great conversation as always. You get a bunch of educators together and we could just talk all night long. There's no question about it. I'm really excited to hear that, and this is going to sound weird, but I'm excited to hear that we are all experiencing the same thing at the same time, right? So regardless of what school, what city, what state, like we are all literally in this together. And so that's part of what makes this community so special, that we have so many different educators just like across the board, different schools, different states, but blah, 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 different roles, but we can all support each other. So I'm excited and I thank you, for bringing your expertise to this space this evening, and supporting our community. I appreciate you as you have supported me years ago when we were,
and basically you're modeling also about hanging on to your tribe. You guys taught together many years ago, and those valuable, professional relationships should not wane just because you've moved on. So thanks for modeling that as well.
Absolutely.
Well, until next time, everyone, next time we will be hosting here right on in our forum and on YouTube. We will be having some higher ed faculty folks joining us, and we are excited about that. So hope to see you then.
Absolutely.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Be well.